Hey, it's Debbie Potts, and I am diving into a topic I love to go into with other personal trainers, health practitioners on how we have changed our own purpose as myself to help others be fit and healthy from the inside out, as we talk about on this podcast, by recreating who you are today so you can be your best self in the future, your future self, looking at what are you doing now so you are thriving as you age is my personal mission. And if you are my age, your parents are probably 70s, 80s. And if you look at how they're aging and their friends, you may have a little extra motivation as myself to make sure, am I doing everything I can do today to be thriving and not struggling on the other side when I'm 80? So I'm going to talk shop with a fellow personal trainer, health coach, practitioner, longevity focused coach. And we're going to talk about how he's changed his mind the last few years and looking at how we can extend the lifespan. Because even if you are similar to me, I'm a retired triathlete, endurance athlete, but I still train. I love the feeling of going out and getting a morning workout. I love swimming in a pool, not with the sharks. And I love bike riding and going for long rides. But I have changed how I train. I don't go super long during the week. I need more recovery. If you looked at my video I did on my genetics, I need more recovery between workouts so I can do well, perform my best, and be strong and not feel like I'm struggling in a workout that's to do with nutrition and recovery protocols. Now, my runs today, as I did this morning, was lifting weights in the gym, getting a little bit of a total body workout and mobility drills. And then I went for a run, but it was 40 minutes. I went out 20 minutes and came back and did some pickups. My old self would be going out and doing an hour or trying to hit, 6 miles or 8 miles. And I would be focused by getting that longer. I always had to do hour. I would never go shorter than an hour run. And now it's like, 30 minutes. The other day I did 15 minutes. That was great. I got what I needed. I felt like a sweat going. I felt energized. So, anyways, I think it'll be fun to dive into this topic today of how we've kind of changed how we age and how we approach our exercise routines, our nutrition, our longevity habits. So I'm talking to Zane Griggs, and I hope you like the show. Let me know in the comments below what you want to know more about, and we can cover them in future podcast episodes. So hit subscribe button because I'm posting these videos on the YouTube channel way before I get into the audio version. So share if you like this information with your fellow aging athletes. Let's dive into how we can improve the aging process. Okay, I've got Zane to come on the show to talk about one of my favorite topics, how we can improve the aging process so we're thriving as we get older, not struggling. So I appreciate your time today, Zane.
Thank
Share
you,
your
Debbie. I
story.
appreciate it. Yeah, happy to.
You're at Hack Your Health and you will live outside Nashville area now, or
Yes.
where are you?
Yeah, Nashville.
So are you a
Yeah.
big country music star fan?
No, actually, I'm not. I moved here several years ago. I moved out of California, I guess, in '97. Um, and just, I had a buddy living here, and it was just a great kind of an entrepreneurial feel here where you could like make a living and hang on to it.
Like
And
here,
have that.
you make a living
Yeah,
and give it to the government.
yes, exactly. So I kind of felt that early on, and it was a culture shock at the time. It's become a little more, it's definitely changed here as more and more people have moved here, and Nashville's becoming a little more of a diverse city. But as far as the people that live here and the food that's available, but it was a good change for me to kind of start over. I'd grown up in California, and it was just a way to kind of. I mean, when I was living, especially in San Diego, where we were talking in San Diego right before I moved here, you couldn't swing a cat in San Diego without hitting a trainer. I mean, so to speak, that's a Southern expression, but I mean, like, there's a trainer every 10 feet, right? In
Yes.
San Diego. It's just a health centered place. And I come here, and it's a very different culture, different feeling. Personal training was kind of on the front, frontier sort of, so to speak, with only certain people had personal trainers, only like, celebrity type or something like that, or the fluent. And so it seemed like a great opportunity for me, but I've enjoyed it. Been a great place to raise a family. I'm still considered a little weird with some of my practices, as you can imagine. But
Why we go to conferences so we can feel normal because we're with our people.
exactly, yeah. And here I have conversations with things people understand what you're saying. They don't just glass over.
Yeah.
So
So you've been a
exactly.
personal trainer for 26 years, you said.
Yes, yeah, since '98, really.
Yeah.
So it's been a journey. You learn a lot when you're working with people.
Yes. Yeah. So kind of talk about what you were motivated to, why were you motivated to be a personal trainer and how it's evolved over the 26 years and how your purpose and mission has changed.
Well, wow, let's go back a bit here. Time machine. So my 20s, I developed an interest in longevity, just how to avoid metabolic disease. I just seen it kind of hit my extended family,
Mm,
and I thought there was a way to avoid this. We didn't know much about epigenetics in the '90s. It was still kind of everything was supposed to be genetic, and we didn't have the internet and blogs and all those kind of things to learn things. So it was kind of like read something, experiment, talk to people, experiment. So that's kind of where I was in my 20s. And I just found I developed this strong curiosity and interest in longevity and health. I've been working out in college, but I haven't really paid much attention to diet other than to get bigger, And so that shifted in my 20s to more of a health aspect. Um, and I decided this is where the direction I want to go with my career, because I have the natural curiosity. I thought I will enjoy it. I'll at least have some personal interest in it. Uh, so started doing it professionally in '98. And I found that the general guidelines just weren't effective. Well, most of my people wanted to lose weight, as you've probably found yourself when you're working with general public. If people want to lose a few pounds or more, and the general guidelines just didn't work. And so as I came
mhm.
across a low carb diet, my wife had just had her third child, and the weight was kind of sticking a little bit, wasn't coming off like it used to. And so she decided to try Atkins diet. At the time was kind of making a resurgence in 2002. And it's like, sure, give it a shot. And it seemed pretty simple, like, very low carb, higher fat, lots of animal protein. And lo and behold, it worked, right? She didn't, without changing much else. She'd been working out, she'd been doing all the things, but it worked. And I'm like, okay, so let me try this with some of my clients. Got a lot of pushback from some of my peers. Oh, you need to have these you need to have these. And I'm like, well, I understand if you're training an athlete, yeah, you need to have those things. If you need to have, there's certain, let's think about different tools for different needs. And as this population is going to be well served by who's trying to lose some weight, I think there's some benefit to increasing fat burning from reducing carbs. So it worked. It worked for a lot of people, the people who want to take it on, and just snowballed into getting a better understanding of diet and looking in alternative sources for that information, realizing that I wasn't going to find it in the mainstream nutrition recommendations.
Mhm.
So moving forward, got developed interest in intermittent fasting in 2009, looking at blogs and intermittent fasting, fasted workouts. I mean, just trial and error with a lot of these things. Most of my clients were interested in weight loss at that, especially through that time. And so it was all about, like, how do we create energy deficits with satiety, right? And
Mhm.
so that was kind of the helpful, part of that. How we create some metabolic stress if they're kind of sedentary. How do we make their body turn on and start burning fuel and turn that thyroid back on and start doing things like it used to? So moving forward, I mean, as I got a little older, I found that I was actually um, probably over cranking something, because I was experiment with them. I would kind of adapt these things like fasting and fasted workouts and very low carb diets. And I hit a wall where I I was had too much metabolic stress. I was feeling run down. I looked good, but I didn't feel good.
Mhm.
And so stress levels were high. I figured cortisol levels were up because what things with my blood work were telling me, my stress levels were a little too high with cortisol, hormonal stress. Um, it was impacting my recovery.
Mhm.
And so, okay, something's got to shift. Something got to change. I'm 47, 48 years old at this point, and I realized I had to start control. I couldn't just pull all the metabolic stress levers all the time, because you have stress of your job, you have stress from
Mm-hmm.
family. There's all sorts of stressors, and just age, right?
Yeah.
And I learned, it's like, okay, we have to moderate these stressors. Maybe I don't need so many fasted workouts or so many days of fasting. Maybe I could tolerate some more whole food carbs. And so as and keep continuing to dig into with nutrition, realizing, okay, what brought us metabolic disease? Well, it was highly processed, ultra processed foods, seed oils, and so forth. So eliminating seed oils, realizing that, looking at history, we didn't have type 2 diabetes, heart disease, obesity, any form of metabolic disease prior to the 1900s, prior to the 20th century, when these ultra processed foods, these seed oils became introduced. So there's room for whole food in a healthy, metabolically healthy body, that we shouldn't fear it, right? We don't need to fear it. We need to manage everything, but we don't need to. Those are not the things, the foods that brought us disease. And so this understanding of where I kind of realizing that whole food, or real food, single ingredient food with animal protein at the center, is the ideal diet. How that looks for each person, how that's managed based on their goals, their current level of health, that may have some variety, but we don't need to fear whole food. And so using that understanding to manage, those, the metabolic stressors, the kind of training I want to do, what kind of training phase I'm in, if I'm really pushing it with strength, if I'm doing more cardio, whatever it is, there's room for some flexibility in there with energy needs, right? To manage this, it doesn't have to look same. It's like, it's not a one size fits all for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And especially with the aging person, we call ourselves aging, and we have to acknowledge that we're getting older, our bodies don't respond like they used to. So how do we best serve our bodies in their current state, and with their current tolerance for stress? And so that really made me take a different look at some of the things I've been teaching and telling my clients and talking about online. It's like I had to take a step back and go, okay, this is what I've been saying is not applicable to everybody. It's not a one size fits all, and there's room for improvement in my thesis, and I need to be curious enough and to continue to move forward and keep learning, and not get set in a sort of a dogmatic stance on these approaches. And that's kind of brought me to where I am now, where I think, it's really an individualized approach. We need individualized strategies for each person, where they are and where they are at that time, because what gets them from A to B may not get them from B to C, and so that's my, as short as I can make it. I'll let you ask me, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a
A little
big
long-winded.
question. Yeah.
It was a
Give
lot.
me
Well, I mean,
26 years.
yeah, like 26 years. There you go. 5 minutes. But that's kind of the journey. And when I hope I continue to dig into and learn, with curiosity,
Curiosity is a great word. Just be
Mhm.
curious, and that leads us to these different rabbit holes. I think, to figure out, okay, what is metabolic health? What is the role of the mitochondria? What
Right.
is oxidative stress? And where are all these stressors coming from that are becoming chronic, and they're overfilling our bucket of stress, and our stress beaker is pouring over, and that's going to lead to hyperadrenic activity. And that goes on for so long before you get the other side, is hypoadrenic activity. And then when you have HPA axis dysfunction, we call it, then you have all sorts of what we say as FDN practitioners, metabolic chaos. And that's basically what
Right.
happened to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I wrote a book 10 years ago, Life is Not a Race, It is a Journey, kind of similar to you, but I was experiencing all that. I was doing all the right things.
Right.
And it's like, wait a minute, maybe so many fasted workouts and drinking bulletproof coffee until 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and training for Ironmans at a competitive age group, just not great, while running my own business and working 4:30 in the morning till 7 at night. Maybe not. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
I'm with
exactly.
you.
I mean, you're dead on. I think we ran into the same problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is, and it's humbling at first, but then I just in conversations I realized, okay, this is a gift. This is a gift
Hmm.
because there's so many people running into this. There's so many people having this issue, and they're trying to diet harder or work out harder, thinking they're not doing it right or not doing it well enough. And that's just, it's not the case. It's just there's factors involved that they're not considering, because we keep treating our bodies like lawnmowers, where we just put fuel in and push fuel out. And it's that's like, it doesn't work that way. And we're hormonal, we have a hormonal system that can be overtaxed, and it will rebel on you. It will push back, and it will, like you found, it will requires a recovery period. And it has to be managed. That's amazing. I mean, I think I mean, when we come into it naturally, right? We hit it, and rather than ignoring it or continuing to push into it, we at some points we have to. It tells us, it's like, you're doing something wrong, right? There's something missing here. And when you're paying attention to your body, that's what happened. But so many don't. So when we can help other people realize, it's like, you're not doing it wrong. You don't need to keep driving forward like this. There's some approaches, some things you can do to make this a lot easier and more effective, and you're just going to feel a whole lot better. And so in that way, I had to look back and go, okay, well, it was not a great moment, but at this time, but now it's a great tool and a great experience to share and help other people.
Yeah, I think it's, why I love talking to people as yourself, that we have an experience, we have a purpose, and we like to educate and help others, and we're curious. So that leads us to helping others avoid going through this metabolic chaos, whatever you want to call it, stress disease or metabolic disease, that so much of it is, but I keep trying to share on my solo podcast, that it's choices we're making now, and figuring out that Goldilocks effect for everything. How much is too much? More is not better. What's the right amount? Not too little, not too much, and just that right magic dose. But that's going to be different for everyone, because we don't know all of your other day-to-day activities and your stressors that are external. And then you don't know about these hidden sources of internal stress if you have some infection or SIBO or, whatever else congestion you've got inside.
Right. Right. For sure. I mean, even if you don't have one of those issues, I mean, those things certainly complicate it, but just the stress of life, like you said, running a job or running a career in a business or in a family, those are important things that you have to show up for. You can't just go recover from your hard workout for 3 hours like a Olympic athlete would go take a 3-hour nap between training sessions. It's like, these are things that are important. They matter to us. We have responsibilities, and we've got to be in condition to take them on, because that is kind of what we're doing it for, after all.
Yeah. So what if you change with nutrition? I know carnivore is a big topic, and anytime I do videos saying carnivore, I get like 10 times more downloads. It's funny. It's like, okay, what's everyone's interest in carnivore that leading people to want to learn more and make their own adjustments? So what's your experience and experiments with diet, nutrition, real food, meat-based?
I think, again, I think it's a strategic approach. I think if you want an elimination diet, or if you got some sort of gut issue, or you've got, autoimmune issues, an elimination diet is a great way to go. If it's a carnivore is a good elimination diet, in that you can bring everything down, then add other foods, and that may be triggering one at a time, and test them. It's a great reset for someone with metabolic disease, someone who's overweight or has, diabetes or insulin resistance. A great reset. I have not found it to be something, in my experience, as a long-term approach. So for very few people, I think, can really handle it long-term without the downside of the cortisol and you basically create, I mean, your body will need glucose at some point. It needs glucose. It's going to take it from somewhere. So you can either eat it, or you can break down muscle and bone and skin to create it, right? With cortisol and epinephrine and glucagon. So I know there's anecdotal, people out there who are anecdotally thriving on it, and that's great. I'm not trying to question their experience. It's just, my experience is that's a great way to heal something, reverse a disease. I'm not a fan of long-term. And if you're going to do it, I do it cyclically. I would cycle some sort of non-inflammatory carb in and out at the very least, just to help the thyroid be restored, help to offset some of the lean mass breakdown that comes with gluconeogenesis and the elevated stress levels. I mean, I like what you experienced with it, just fasting, it's not much different than what you would experience with fasting and fasted workout. You have a stress level that's elevated uh, hormonally that is trying to create glucose for you. And so, yes, some of it comes from lactate, but there's a lot that will come from muscle and skin and bone. And as I got older, I just, I think we become less tolerant of that level of we have to recover from that as well. And so I really like a whole food approach with animal protein at the center, but then find the foods that work for you and whatever your goals are at the time, but that are single ingredient foods, from veggies to fruits, starches, and fit those into your diet as your body responds to them and as it works for your level of output. You know, your the level of intensity of your exercising, what kind of stress you're going through, how it helps with your sleep. I mean, my sleep improved greatly by adding breakfast back in, so I stopped adding in, being intermittent fasting, and then having a little carb in the morning with my protein actually brings that cortisol level down. And to correct my stress issue, my cortisol issue, and correct my sleep, I needed to do that for like 60 days before I started noticing the difference. And so I think we have to think strategically, and like we said, an individualized approach based on where they are in their journey and how hard are they working out, how often they're working out, what other stressors are involved, to fuel activity with good food, with clean food that's not going to negatively impact their mitochondria, as we talked about, right?
Yeah.
I think the biggest detriment to our mitochondria right now is the seed oils, is the processed oils, because of how they create oxidative stress, as you mentioned, which is the beginning of all disease, and they lower our ATP output, which makes us pull more on blood sugar, and then you create a whole downstream hypoglycemic response. Okay, you're going to pull on blood sugar. Guess what? Liver's going to put more blood sugar out, or the brain's going to tell you eat more and snack, and there's a downstream impact of these oils that come in every bit of processed food you find, that is it's not just about the calories. It's how our bodies respond to it hormonally and in terms of managing our blood sugar. So I think that's being overlooked by many people.
Yeah, I think Dr. Kate Shanahan's really helping clear.
Oh, nailed it. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
nailed it. I love her. Her one of her early books, Deep Nutrition, was like just a mind-blowing, like, game changer for me, and really opened my eyes up to those oils and the ways to bring in different types of different preparations for certain foods that really impacts our nutrition. But yeah, she's the dark calories. Is that what it is? Dark calories that's come out now. I mean, it's amazing. I'm at the tail end of it right now.
Yeah, it's on my list. That and Good Energy from Dr. Casey Means is
Yes, that's next on
also
my
what
list. That's right. I'm going to be digging into that the next week for sure.
I need to start reading more than a couple pages at night though, or else it's be like 5 years before I finish all these books.
If I don't get it on Audible, it doesn't happen. So I have to,
Oh,
so I listen in my car or whatever, working out. And so that's how I'm able to consume them, but I'll still get the hard copy because I love the data, I
yes.
love the studies and having that and having it broken down where I can reread something. But I mean, yeah, she's got the data there. And if anyone's really curious or questioning the impact of highly processed food, ultra processed food, and these seed oils, you should read both of those books and tell me what your opinion is. Then I don't want to argue with you. There's enough data out there to show it, and they've consolidated. And so it's really I'm a little shocked at some very educated, smart people in the space that are still questioning this impact of these oils, and thinking of it from a caloric standpoint instead of the oxidative stress and hormonal impact it has on, and just energy production. Like you said, it comes down to the mitochondria. Everything comes down to the mitochondria. And as Casey Means said, the food we eat is how we communicate with our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what are you communicating to your body?
Yeah.
Every time you put food in it, you're communicating.
That's so
And
true.
you're telling it what you want it to do. And so what is your food telling? What is the food you're eating telling your body? Is it telling it to make more energy or make less? Is it telling it that we're inflamed and we have an immune response going on here in our cells? Or is it or is it giving you energy with minimal stress? And so that's, I think, how we need to start thinking about what we're consuming, because we live in an environment that is mixed with real food and factory made food that's not really food. It didn't exist 150 years ago.
Not one ingredient food. I think that should be the
No.
new food plan, is what we suggest. Real
Single
food,
ingredient food.
balance of
Yeah.
one single ingredient food. That's the diet we're on.
Yeah. And then whatever mix of that works for your body and fits your energy needs and your game
Yeah.
plan and your journey, whether you're losing weight or putting on muscle, it's gonna fit in under the umbrella of single ingredient food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna write that down. So we're gonna start a new thing, because that's what I would say is in nutritional therapy, we learned that years ago in my NTP program that
Yeah.
number one thing, eat real nutrient dense, real food that balances your blood sugar. I mean, don't
Yeah.
make it complicated. And I think so many people get confused because they listen to all these different podcasts and read social media that's like,
Right.
keto, I'm supposed to eat this. I can eat whatever I want because it says keto. And then it's
Oh
evolved
yeah.
to, such a change in the world of, we've been in this, you've been in this as long as I have. And I think it's just kind of entertaining to look at the whole change of the industry. And I go to Expo West Natural Product Show because my husband's in the foods industry, and I just walk
Okay.
the show and go, okay, what's the new trend? And it's all, food label stuff. So none of it's one ingredient food that they're selling in a package. But,
Yeah. No.
what's the new trend? And it's really interesting to see the changes, but I think that's a big part of it. So going back to what you just said to summarize about the seed oils and oxidative stress, mitochondria, we're creating less ATP. And if we apply that to the athlete that's working out every day, more than once
Mm.
usually, because triathletes, we do 3 sports, plus you need mobility, yoga, strength. We're doing it all. And usually everyone's type A, AAA, high
Yes.
performers taking, if you say if something's good, they're going to do it way too much,
Yeah. They're
right?
gonna
So
pull
that's
that lever
my
all the way down.
clients. That's my audience. So what I'm trying to share on my little PowerPoint presentations I've been doing on YouTube is oxidative stress. There's that bell curve for exercise. Sedentary, the right dose, that Goldilocks effect for exercise, moderate amount, balance of reactive oxygen species in,
Right.
antioxidant, so we balance that out. I think most of us are over here on the other side of the bell curve, that we're getting excessive oxidative stress from the exercise. But then you add in how many athletes eat all that processed foods that has the vegetable oils in it. That's a great example of being fit on the outside, but not healthy on the inside at a cellular level. And that's becoming my mission on this show, to think just because I'm lean and strong on the outside doesn't, and maybe you're fast, you can do a marathon, Ironman, but what's going on a cellular level? Test and not guess, we say as practitioners. But what do you say with that oxidative stress and how athletes and seed oils, and what are your thoughts and experiences in that side of it?
It is, again, it's hard to communicate because they're looking for energy and quick energy and to recover. And I get that those are energy dense foods, and their coaches probably had them, eating those in college. And so it's
Mhm.
what they know. And so you're changing a paradigm for them to start thinking about their bodies. But if you get them looking at blood work, and they could, look, I mean, they might be fit enough and doing enough work that their blood sugar's in the right place, fasting insulin, maybe, but they might start putting on some visceral fat or having some liver issues, liver numbers going up. I mean, it's what's hard with an athlete is they don't have the external negative feedback, right? Because they're fit and it's helping them perform and helping them recover. And it's helping, the idea is to help them look forward into the future with, like, look, joint issues are something you have to manage, inflammation in your joints, inflammation in quicker recovery. And so the more you can reduce inflammation, the quicker you're going to recover. You'll be able to keep training, and helping them understand this oxidative stress is inflammation. It is inflammation in tissues at a cellular level. It's just your recovery. It may take a little more work for you to put the food together you need for recovery. It's not going to be a quick grab in a bag or a box.
Mhm.
But the downstream impact is you're going to have more longevity in your sport. You're going to have less pain. You're going to have quicker recovery. And it's in your, I mean, we have all seen the stories of the, you know, heart surgeons or the marathon who are marathon runners who drop dead of a heart attack, right? Because they are doing the work, but they haven't adjusted their diet, right? And so the inflammation is building up between what they're training and their diet, which is coming from, you know, standard American diet, standard recommendations, because they're a heart, you know, they're a doctor. They're going to follow that food pyramid or the plate or whatever the heck they're calling it now. And they're not recovering. Their body is not recovering from the stress they're creating in their extreme sport.
Yeah.
You know, you you have to. I mean, it would be great to, as insensitive as it sounds, to know what those doctors were eating, and to trace back, like, what was their diet, what does their liver look like, how much visceral fat were they storing up, what was their, you know, those are questions I have when I hear a story like that. The running didn't kill them. The running was just a stress, one more stressor that they were not recovering from because of something else they were ignoring in their diet, in their lifestyle, right? Because we have tens of thousands of people running marathons, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that if that is, I don't know, an effective way for some people to understand this, if you're playing the long game, reducing stress, thinking about recovery, not thinking about the immediate need, then hopefully a mature athlete will understand that and get that concept. And I think more and more as that data comes out from people like Dr. Kate Shanahan and Casey Means, we'll be able to communicate this more effectively. But I don't know if I answered your question, honestly.
Yeah.
But it just got me thinking. It's just like we have to think long term. As we get older, that should be better for us. So when we're 20s, we don't think long term. Long term is 30, right? But
Mhm.
in our 40s and 50s, we're thinking, okay, 60 is not that far away. 70, I still want to be active. 80, I mean, I don't want my loved ones having to take care of me. You know, those are real thoughts in your 50s because your summers are numbered at that point.
Do you have your parents around still?
I do have my parents are around. My dad's got some memory issues. He's not all there. He when he was when he had all of his faculties, he was very constant with working out. He was always a runner and working out in the gym. My wife's parents have just passed away in the last year and a half, and so it's you know, that's the kind of reality that hits you as well. I mean, when
That's
you
my
have that kind
point.
of, yeah, you're lost and you look and you count their age and you kind of go, that's not that far away,
Mhm.
really. And then you look at how many grandkids are left, you know, and you it's like the reality of that is, should be a wake up call. Should be something where you want to look deeper at how you're living and what you can do to improve on that. Not to criticize them, but it's like, how do I do it better? You know,
Mhm.
what can I learn from their experience that tell me, okay, I can do this better. And so I really think that's, I mean, it's a good point. You know, it's avoiding those diseases. That's what triggered me, I think, in my 20s, was seeing my uncles. And I was in my 20s. My dad was the youngest of four brothers. And he wasn't having the problems with heart disease and cardiovascular disease that they were having, but he was constantly working out, paid attention to his diet as well as he knew. And they weren't exercising. Some of them smoked, but just, you know, they just didn't have the same attention to their health that he did. And so they were finding in their 50s and 60s, they were having issues with cardiovascular disease and even being debilitated. I think that triggered me to look forward to, like, look, I don't want that for me. You know, and
Yeah.
what's the big difference here between my dad and his brothers? Well, my dad was exercising all the time, like every week, several times a week. He made a point of doing something, you know, and very physical. And so I think that's what got me looking at it, triggered my move in this direction, curiosity in this direction.
Exactly what I thought, because that's same as me. My dad passed away, and everyone that listens regularly probably doesn't want to hear this again, but he passed away 2 years ago. But 10 years before that, he had a heart attack. I swear, from
Mm.
chronic stress because he ran out of his business. And I look back and how they didn't exercise, that you get how this is probably normal. I'll say American because I watch, you watch any movie or show that's made in Europe, they're walking everywhere and on those little
Right.
towns, climbing stairs, they're moving all day long, climbing stairs and going downstairs. And I look back at my parents, they, got up, went to work, buy a car, worked all day, drove home. Was it someone said once you get like 1 hour of movement a day or something? It was like how much you go from chair to chair to chair, how
Right.
sedentary we are. And then you come home, have cocktail, scotch and water, and then they have dinner, and then you watch TV, and then you go to bed, do it again. It's like, how unhealthy is that? But no one thought about it back then. It's like, that is not really a healthy lifestyle. So I think about, what we're doing now to recreate our current self to be our best future self. Is that why my dad had more health problems and passed away? And how can I avoid that? Even though I'm exercising all the time, I just shared my genetic report and my labs and how it is so essential, I think, for us to do that now, to take ownership of our health and know that epigenetics is a thing, and how to be preventative, I think, is a great option. So do you do genetic and lab testing and look at any preventative markers you're talking about?
I definitely do my
Labs?
labs. I'm gonna do the I'm gonna in the next 2 weeks, we've got a little family thing I gotta handle, but the True Diagnostic does that. There's a
I did
test
that.
for the Horvath clock and the telomere test and all
Yeah.
that. So that's on my list this month to do that for my wife and I both. But looking at labs, I've been doing for I guess probably 5-6 years now. We're looking at fasting insulin, all the sex hormones, thyroid, you know, those looking at liver numbers, although I usually throw them off because of the exercise. But just
Mhm.
looking we have to keep tabs on to see what's good and what's changing and how things move. And I try to get my clients to do the same. And I like looking at their lab obviously as well. Um, and help them line up their lifestyle habits with their goals or whatever they want to change on the lab work, if needed. And explain to them, like, tie those together, tie your lifestyle habits with what kind of health outcomes are you looking for in your blood work. Well, here's how we reach those. We do these through what you do every day, every week will help you get there. But I think the things that are left off of many people's lab work from that I see that doctors just don't put on there, like fasting insulin is a big one. It's like, why isn't every doctor
It costs
including that?
$15 to order on your own. It makes me so angry that it's
Yeah.
not included.
It should be, the
Ridiculous.
doctor should want it. The doctor should
Yeah.
want to see that if you're looking at prevention, why are we waiting till blood sugar is off the charts or A1C is off the charts? Then you already have a disease state. At that point, the insulin has failed. The fasting insulin will be elevated 5-10 years before that blood sugar ever goes up, and you can start addressing it then. But our system's not set up for prevention,
No,
you
no.
know? And
I've
sex hormone,
asked, yeah,
thyroid,
sorry.
all of those. No, 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 I didn't mean to interrupt.
I asked when my dad was in the hospital, he was in there for 2 weeks and then he passed right when he was supposed to. They're kicking him out, but they would
Mm,
not test insulin. And I asked him, I go, will you please test insulin? No, why? He's not diabetic. Like, WTF? Like I have genetic SNPs and I looked for years. I've done genetics for different companies and I'm susceptible to type 2 diabetes. It comes from both parents. It didn't show up as high glucose. It was higher in some of them, but they wouldn't test it. So I always wonder like how much of all of his kidney issues related to his insulin resistance. And look at
mm,
all the research from Dr. Ben Bickman that it's just amazing that doctors don't do that. So that's why I'm a big proponent that I'm not a doctor, but take your ownership of your health in your own
right.
hands because they're not doing these tests. And you can go work with a coach, an integrated approach with a doctor, but order those labs yourself if you won't do that on all if the doctor won't do that on Alta
Right.
Labs, there's Direct Labs, there's Rupa Health, there's all sorts of ways you can get your own labs if the doctor won't do it.
Right, for sure. Yeah, there are lab companies opening up all over the place to do remote, labs and
Yeah, Inside Tracker, I mean, all
yeah,
that. Self
yeah.
decode.
There's so many available now. And what's amazing what I learned recently is that like in Australia, they don't have that freedom. They can't just go
Oh,
order their labs. They have to go actually. The girl I spoke to, and she's very fit. She's fitness competitions, very at 50 something years old, has to make an excuse for getting lab work, like she's traveling, or say that I saw someone say they had to be say they were a vegan, so they're worried about nutrient deficiencies. And so traveling or a vegan to get their doctor to order labs for them, and then the doctor keeps them. They don't even get a copy of it. And they look at it and it's like, wait a minute.
yeah.
Wait a minute.
Hmm.
That's ridiculous. And there's still like I think 20 states in the US where the doctor keeps all of the lab reports. They don't give access to, like they don't give you a copy, they don't give access to. They think it's the medical system's ownership of your lab. And it's like that, no, no, no. This is our health. We're trying to prevent disease, not wait until we have
Yeah.
one to start addressing this. And it's like this is a freedom that we're supposed to have, but not everybody does, and we don't utilize it like we should. And we're educated to the doctors encourage it. We check our own health long before we need a doctor and see there's an issue going on and address these things with lifestyle. If we just knew a handful of markers to look for,
Yeah.
it's not that complicated.
I know.
And, I mean, we're not talking about detecting cancer. We're talking about keep an eye on your metabolic health and your hormone levels. And it's like, okay, those are going to be impacted by what you do every day or just by age. And
Hmm.
so, and there's things you can impact with, again, your lifestyle choices, diet, exercise, and sleep. Why wouldn't everyone need to know that? Why wouldn't everyone have a desire to understand like that? It's that can be that simple to prevent these diseases that are basically overtaking our entire medical system, and they make up 80-90% of the people in the hospital. A
Hmm.
preventable disease.
Yeah. It's tough. So with how you work with clients now as a personal trainer, more coaching people on longevity, you focus
Yes.
on nutrition, single
Mhm.
food ingredient, whole foods, exercise, sleep, stress management. What with the exercise part, what do you find works best for your clients that are aging
Well, I
over
think
50?
yeah, strength training, I mean, is vital. Like you've got to do that just to keep lean mass and dense bones, right? And just to be able to move and function. Like if you're not working to hold on to it or build it, you are actively losing it. Like your body is eating it, right? And it's just you may not see it in change of size, but it's it's probably if you see you've seen pictures of the sarcopenia, it goes from like it might be the same size, but it goes from lean mass to fat mass in the same space. We will eat our muscle, as we age. We have to be very uh not just disciplined but deliberate about stimulating and hanging on to lean mass as we age. We'll get osteoporotic, we'll get breakable bones, right, and weak muscles. Where a simple fall could be debilitating. Where if we
Yeah.
fell playing a sport, I mean, if you any sport, you fall, right? Kids fall, we all fall, but over 65, that's like the major falling is a major cause of fatal and non-fatal injuries. It's the number one cause. And so you fall, you break something, you're in bed next year, you're susceptible to pneumonia or any other health risk.
Yeah.
That fall could be like fatal 9 months down the road, a year down the road, because of what happens after, because you're debilitated.
Yep.
And you're not falling because you're out climbing rocks or playing soccer. You're falling because you trip over a chair leg in your kitchen. And
No.
so on your own floor, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, or you step off a curb wrong. And so these are things that normally would not take us out, but because if we neglect that physical part of our health where we need to have strength. So I think
Mhm.
cardio is great. I would never say, no, just do weights. Don't worry about cardio. No, we do it all. We need to do it all, right? VO2 max, very important. I think our cardiovascular health, creating nitric oxide in our system, comes that cardiovascular uh, exercise, which to help maintain normal blood pressure. I mean,
Mhm.
we don't get to pick and choose anymore. We need to do it all. We need to lift weights. We
Yeah.
need to do cardio. If you can do some high intensity cardio, if your body can still sustain, definitely do that too. We need the fast stuff. We need the slow stuff, and we need the heavy lifting. to, whatever your body can sustain to on a regular basis, because it's will actively decompose if you don't do it. It's a tough way of saying it, but that's what's happening. You
Yeah,
know,
look at your
it,
parents. I mean, my mom, the last couple of years,
yeah,
just bony. And I think if you're listening, you're working out, you're not there yet, but just know the importance of the strength training part and mobility and movement throughout
yes,
the day, not just being able to go for a bike or run,
right,
but it is so important. I watch people get older and how that fight for protein and why I keep talking about the muscle protein synthesis and getting the right amino acid profile so you can build muscle. Because we, especially females with our lower estrogen, our hormones going down, that we have to work even harder. So I think a lot of people fight gaining weight as they get older. And I always have the saying is, don't blame the aging process, embrace it and adjust your training routine, because doing more cardio isn't probably going to help you lose weight. Because I do metabolism testing with Pinoy and I see people's resting metabolism rates low for their age, gender, height, weight.
mm.
And then how do you improve your metabolism? We see that as you get older, metabolism gets slower. Well, how do you improve it?
Lift
Strength
weights, add
training
more lean mass. Yeah,
and eat protein, add more lean mass.
right,
So,
right.
look at that and look at how your parents are aging and how, you know, I'm getting on my mom, like she couldn't, she's here last week, couldn't get up and down out of a chair without pushing herself up,
Pushing.
couldn't go down my stairs or up and down. I mean, just activities of daily life. It is that old saying back in
Mhm.
that commercial, I fall and I can't get up, is
Right.
totally true. And to be able to get from your knees on the floor or lying down the floor to get up, I think that's the number one exercise, which surfers do all the time, I observed.
Right. Yeah, they
To get
pop
off
right
the
up, don't they?
surfboard up quickly, that's what we need to keep doing as we get older.
Yeah, that
Strength.
pop-up exercise is not bad. You go from belly to feet under you. I mean, and that, not
Yeah.
a lot of people can do that anymore.
No.
No, but getting off the floor is definitely mobility. I like the little primal movement,
Hmm.
that's a good way to introduce that if someone's not doing yoga. It's like, okay, how about some animal flow, some primal movement, just
Hmm.
something that gives you mobility
I'll
where you can
check.
move deep, yeah, deep sits and shifting back and forth. And it's like these are all functional movements that where we learn to move in those extreme ranges, as we would call them, because if you're going from a chair to standing, you're not going to touch these ranges, right? And many exercises that are weighted don't go there either. But be able to move your body in these ranges. These
Yeah.
are the ranges where we normally get, and I would say normally, where we would have the most susceptibility to injury if we're under stress in these extreme ends of the range, right? In
Mm.
the in that very stretched range of a muscle, or if you're deep sit or some kind of deep bend of a knee or a hip, those are where we have a susceptibility to injury. And so moving in those ranges with some fluidity, being comfortable there, doesn't have to be heavy weighted movements, just move your body in those
Hmm.
ranges. It's incredible what it can do for just how connected you are in your body,
Yes.
how you
Yeah.
feel, and how the proprioception that you retain from being able to feel your body moving, how you feel it in space. It doesn't, not every movement has to be so deliberate. And I think you see
Hmm.
that with older people, as they lose touch, they lose the movement side of their life, where they're not as active. It takes more thought to move. They have to be more deliberate about, as they're going up a step, or they're moving in a small space, that they're having to think more about balance and how am I going to do this. Whereas when you're younger, you just do it, right?
Yeah.
You just hop up the stairs, you know? And so that's what you can retain, that nervous system connection to your body, that mind to muscle connection, just through simple movements like that. That
Hmm.
I shouldn't say simple. They're unweighted, but you're just moving your body through space in certain ranges that you normally don't, get into from a chair. And
Like Turkish get up.
like perfect Turkish
Yeah.
get up. Yeah. Really very practical move.
I was laughing at, so I have my Idea World Fitness Convention I go to every year. It's next week in LA,
Mm,
which I hate going to downtown LA. Is not a good place to go to convention center. If you want to
no.
go outside, you can't go anywhere. So the funny conferences, you're saying the animal flow and primal, it's almost what we do at end of life is what we do at beginning of life. If you watch the charts of how infant, a newborn to infant to toddler, you see that, and then you see those pictures of, the opposite. So it's just kind of beginning and end of life kind of
Right,
overlap.
overlap.
You
Yeah, you're
reverse
not
it.
wrong. Yeah.
You have to keep being able to a baby to get up, to stand and balance, and to get up off the floor, to get up and to balance walking. It's just doing that as you get older, I think, is the important part.
Oh yeah. Playground moves, so to speak. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like playground movement, you know?
Yeah. So I know I'm going to run out of time, and I want to touch on fasting. So you
Okay.
mentioned a while ago about how you've changed fasting, and I've done the same thing and talked about it many times the last few years, but same, started into the 16-8, the 24-hour, the OMAD, I don't know, 5, 10, I guess it's probably 10 years now,
Mhm.
and how that evolved, especially for athletes. So what's your kind of in 5 minutes journey
Ooh.
of fasting? Any big
Well, well,
takeaways?
well, I mean, yeah, I was doing intermittent fasting most every day and then doing a 24-hour fast once a week.
Hmm.
And then fasted workouts. So all that. And I think it's just, especially when you're metabolically healthy, you're lean, you're training heavy or training has a high intensities, whether it's cardio or strength training, I think that's probably too much. There's not a lot of, it's too much when cortisol, too much to recover from, not enough fuel for those muscles. And I think we need to be thinking about if you're in that position where you're lean and you're athletic, fueling like an athlete rather than a dieter. You don't need to do what a dieter does. You're going to create, I mean, young athletes get REDs, right? Relative energy deficiency in sport. And so as older adults, we're much more susceptible to that because we have far more responsibilities. We're aging body. And I think we need to fuel for performance. We need to fuel to activate those, especially with strength training or high intensity movement, those type 2 fibers that are very glycolytic. They are, if you're doing an anaerobic activity, that's 65% or more of that energy for that movement is coming from glucose. Well, where's that glucose going to come from? If you're not eating it, as I said before, you're breaking it down from lean mass. As cortisol levels go up, break down lean mass, some lactate as well, but lean mass is being broken down, go to the liver, put out more blood sugar. You're creating a stress response, or you can refuel with a healthy source of glucose. We just had a study come out last week, I think it was. I saw it getting passed around. It was read enough of it to understand that they found that the keto diet was not ideal for high intensity exercise performance or for muscle building because it just did it was there was the higher carb diet actually had better results. And so from a performance aspect, we perform better with that glucose coming on board so that we're not having to create it. There's a price for everything. There's a risk to benefit ratio.
Yeah.
And for some people, it might be worth it for them if they're trying to reverse metabolic disease. That's worth that risk to start changing something if that's what's working for them. If you're already metabolically healthy, you need to think about, well, what's the risk of going so low carb or having fasting before you work out without you're not fueling, that you are risking that lean mass, you're risking an overtraining response because of the cortisol level, and not, it's just there's a risk to benefit to everything, and we need to weigh that. And I think for me, from my experience, fueling for my workouts, I perform much better. I sleep better. I recover better when I've got some fuel on board than rather than going fasted. That's
Mhm.
as condensed as I can.
Well, that's what I've said for the last 4 years. I think we've been on this topic. I've had to go over that. So I was doing all that too. And I think a lot of us in our performance, I know my friend Mike Mutzel talked about it a ton too. And everyone's like, oh, stop fasting because we were doing what everybody was being told the benefits of fasting were not based on athletes, metabolically healthy or active individuals. It was for people that were
Right,
overweight or struggling with, they don't do any, they're sedentary. So
right,
I
or
think,
satiety issues as well.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So it's interesting how it's evolved in all of us people in that space kind of we're in that or fasted exercise. It's amazing. Then you're just like, okay, and then all carbs are demonized. And that's why I don't
Right,
I'm trying to change this podcast from low carb athlete because it didn't mean no carbs. It means nature's carbs strategically placed in and around higher intensity workouts that are burning glucose for fuel. Because if your goal is to improve performance, as you just said, you need to fuel for it.
right.
And so it's really looking at metabolic flexibility. But I think the
Yes.
fasting experience we all had was, again, given us a purpose to help other people avoid overly fasted exercise, especially women.
Well, for sure, women really do not be doing fast exercise. I even tell the women I'm working with, it's like you're working out in the morning, great. At least take some essential amino acids or BCAAs if you need to, and a banana, some fruit. If you can't get a shake or something before you work out, faster workouts on the effect on cortisol. Especially young women, it's not just an age thing. It's young women too. Their body is set up to create a
Yeah.
life, right? To
Yeah.
sustain life. And so
Kisspeptin.
hormonally, it doesn't want to be in an energy deficit. If it does, it's going to rebound. And your cortisol level, stress levels are like, hey, let's put some weight on in case this happens again. And
Yeah.
so it's not great for female athletes at all. But I think in general, it's like you found. I mean, the we have enough stressors. We're creating stress with exercise for it. In effect, we have stress that we are not going to get rid of with our careers and our families. And so we need to manage those things and find balance there and realize that without demonizing certain foods, there's benefits there that will help us.
We're
Uh,
demonizing inflammatory foods, overly processed
right?
vegetable oils. That's what we're
Yeah. The
demonizing.
the things that weren't foods before we
Yes.
had disease, basically.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the ones where it correlates really well, like, hey, guess what? These things weren't here. And then when they were here, now we have disease. And we don't have to go that far back to figure that out. It's not a Paleolithic history, let's say. This is like the last couple of 100 years. And so it's really not hard to connect the dots.
Yeah. I should go back. I interviewed Dr. Kate Shanahan forever
Mm.
ago on her first book. So we started this in 2011, I think,
Oh, wow.
10. So we were Fit Fat Fast, talking about eating fat to burn fat. And but I met with her in person. She was starting to do metabolic testing. I did metabolic testing, and then she was in Napa and then moved East Coast and different places. But she's always talking about the seed oils, and really interesting to see
Right.
how she's gotten to where she is now, sharing that information, just focusing on that mission. And kind of like Nina Lipschultz in The Big Fat Surprise was another book. If you want to, I had to read it for
Oh, I love
nutritional
it.
therapy practitioner. That's 500-page research manual, pretty much, of half of its references to prove that it was all, a lot of false
Oh,
marketing.
yeah. Bad data. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, I'll let you go back to having your rest of your day. And where can people learn more to work with you, hear you
Oh,
speak?
well,
What do they find?
ZaneGriggs.com is a good place to find my socials if you want to go there to figure out where I am. I'm pretty active on Instagram at Zane Griggs Fitness. And YouTube is just at Zane Griggs. And then I've got a couple speaking engagements coming up. One's out here in West Tennessee, Burns, called the Low Carb for Better Health Conference. So, and that's where I'll be talking about basically working strength training into your weight loss plan. And then they've got the Biohackers World Conference coming up in October on a men's health panel there. And so that's what I've got. I know I've got coming up. So that's in Miami.
I have
That's in
my
Miami in
notes here. Do you want
October.
me to tell you? You're
Let's
in August 24th, Fairview,
Thank you.
Tennessee.
Oh, they said
October
Fairview. Okay.
26th is
Biohackers World.
Biohackers World Conference in Miami. I'm sure Ben
Yes.
Azadi will be there because he's in Miami. In
Ben is speaking
Tennessee,
there. He's keynoting there. Yeah. Ben and I are good
of course.
buddies.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. I love Ben. And then is Dr. Ken Berry involved in the one in Tennessee, since he
He
lives out
is.
that way?
Yeah. He lives on the other side. I live on one side of it. He lives on the other side of it, east and west of it. But yeah, he's definitely speaking at that. He and Nisha both are speaking at that Low Carb for
Okay.
Better Health.
I've spoken on the low carb cruise with them a few years, so
Oh, yeah.
hung out. That's the best time if you ever want to hang out and get to know people. 70s on a cruise ship.
Yeah. They're
Like
locked
the
on a boat. They
speakers.
can't escape.
Yeah. So you're just having dinner, you're hanging out, because usually we don't go to town, and especially all the
Right.
little tour spots. So anyways, that's a great place to meet at conferences, listen to you and learn more. And we'll follow you on Instagram and help people
Thank you.
improve the aging process.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Debbie, so much.